Thanks everyone for taking the time to join us in this webinar. My name again is Abdel Jaybar. I am support engineer here at Grandstream Networks. In today's webinar, I will present the Grandstream IP door phone GDS3710, and I will explain its security features and how to configure them. So for today's agenda, we're going to talk about the specs and features supported on the GDS3710. Then I will briefly explain the deployment scenarios uh, and how you can use the GDS in such deployment. Then we're going to talk about the different modes of access using the GDS. Then we'll describe few security application scenarios. And then we will jump to the web interface of the GDS so I can show you how to make these configurations. So just to refresh everyone of the specs and features supported by GDS3710, it is a hemispheric IP video door phone with 180-degree view for monitoring wall-to-wall without blind spots. It supports the video codec H.264, which makes it compatible with third-party devices like third-party IP PBXs that support the same codec. It is powered by an advanced ISP or image sensor processor, and it delivers a good performance in all lighting conditions thanks to the implemented wide dynamic range or WDR. And just to explain what WDR is, sometimes when you have an image or a video stream, there are parts of the image or video that is too dark while another part is too bright. So WDR balances that lighting so that you can get a better, clear image and video. And the image or the image that was captured and that is shown in the slide depicts how this feature works. This is an example that shows a comparison between hemispheric and LDC or lens distortion correction, which is very useful, especially with hemispheric and fisheye phones and cameras, because it helps straighten out the curving shape of the image in the video, as you can see in the two examples. In terms of technical highlights, GDS 3710 contains integrated PoE, LEDs, HD loudspeaker, RFID card reader, motion detection, lighting control switch, alarm input and alarm output, and more other features. Also, the GDS 3710 features two-way audio and video streaming to smartphones and SIP phones, allowing you to receive calls from the GDS on a specific SIP phones when the doorbell is pressed. And I'm going to show you this during the configuration from the web interface. The GDS 3710 is designed to be deployed indoor and outdoor, and it's going to operate in temperature ranges minus 30 to Celsius to 60 degrees Celsius. In Fahrenheit is minus 22 degrees to 142 degrees. So when it comes to deploying the GDS 3710, there are two different scenarios. The first is peer-to-peer connection, which does not require the use of an IP PBX. And the second is SIP registration, which requires the use of an IP PBX like the Grandstream UCM 6000. So for the example in front of us, which is peer-to-peer connection, it can be implemented in an environment where there's only one GDS installed and connected to a video phone like the Grandstream GXV3275 or 3370 to monitor and control access to the premise. Employees or family members that require daily access to let's say to the premise or the house, can be provided with RFID cards or PIN numbers to get in, while visitors need to press the doorbell button on the GDS to initiate a video call, and the person that is monitoring access from the video phone can unlock the door strike by simply pressing the open door icon, the one that is highlighted in red, or just simply entering the remote pin to open the door. Again, this deployment scenario does not require an IP PBX in place. All you need is just a GDS and another video phone or any IP phone and direct connection between the two devices. So in case you have multiple GDS devices with multiple SIP endpoints, an IP PBX needs to be deployed in order to communicate between the different devices. For example, when you need to ring a group of extensions, if someone presses the doorbell button, an IP PBX like the Grandstream UCM is required. You can also use GS Wave, the Grandstream free soft phone application, that can be integrated with GDS3710, and this application can be installed on any iOS or Android device. It offers more mobility during security monitoring and increased connectivity to essential communications and the real-time audio and video stream. During the live demo later, I will use the SIP registration scenario to show you exactly how you can configure GDS as a SIP endpoint. So in terms of access modes supported on the GDS, there are four independent access modes, which means the most that the users have to do something to unlock the door. So the first mode is using the RFID cards or the fobs that come with the GDS. In case you would like to purchase more of these cards, the specs related to the RFID cards, they should be 125 kilohertz, and they should support the standard EM 4100. So from the GDS, you can scan the cards, upload the information, and then the users, just by simply scanning the card, the GDS can send the signal to the electric strike to unlock the door. The second option, in case you don't want to use RFIDs, you can assign private PIN numbers to users. So each user will have a unique and specific PIN number that they need to punch in to unlock the strike. The third option is using a unified PIN. This is useful in case you have the GDS, for example, used in a house, and all the family members, they can use the same PIN number to unlock the strike and get into the house. Then we have the fourth mode, which is more secure because it's two-factor combination. So you have to use the PIN number together with the card. And the way it works, you swipe the card, and then the UCM expects you to enter the PIN number before it unlocks the strike. In terms of controlled access, there are also four modes supported on the GDS. The first option is you press the doorbell, it rings a phone, then from the phone, you can unlock the door using the open door icon, or just simply enter the remote PIN to unlock the strike just by entering like a DTMF numbers on the phone. The second option is you can ring the doorbell. It's going to ring. Then someone, by just pressing one of those door lock switches, they can unlock the door. And the door lock switch needs to be connected to one of the input or the alarm inputs in the GDS. The third option is you can use the GDS as a SIP endpoint, where users, they can use the keypad to dial extensions. This is useful, for example, in an apartment building where you have like, let's say 20 apartments in the building, people can just simply dial the apartment number, and the GDS is going to dial the extension associated with that apartment number. And then when they pick up the phone, they will have access to unlocking the door from their phone. The fourth option is using motion detection on the GDS. You can either use the built-in motion detector built into the GDS device, or you can use it with an infrared used for motion detection as an accessory, and then you can connect this device to one of the alarm inputs in the GDS. So whenever that device or the GDS detects that there is a movement, you can actually configure it to open the door or send an alarm. This is something that we're going to discuss in the next slides. So this is in terms of installation and wiring. So as I mentioned earlier, the GDS supports two alarm input connection. In the example that we have to the right, you can use one of the alarm inputs to connect an infrared sensor, and then you can use the second one with door lock switch, so that whoever is monitoring the door, they can just, by pressing the button, it's going to unlock the door or unlock the strike. And the alarm inputs can be configured with two modes, either open door, like the case with the door lock switch. Every time you press it, it opens the door. Or you can use the second mode, which is trigger alarm action. So when you go to the GDS, and something that we're going to see during the live demo, you have some options that you can configure so that if the IR sensor detects any activity, you can configure it with a set of actions to take. And some of these actions, for example, calling a number or sending you an email or take a snapshot. We're going to talk about them, and I'm going to show them to you later when we go through the web UI. For alarm inputs, the GDS also supports two alarm outputs. Usually one is used with the door strike, and then you can use the second one to connect a siren, or you can use, for example, the loud ringer in case there is a big warehouse, and you can just deploy it there. So if someone presses the doorbell, it's gonna send the signal to the loud ringer so you can hear, so people in the warehouse can hear the ringing of the GDS. So these options, you can configure them based on a schedule. The same thing with alarm inputs, you can configure them with schedule. You can set a schedule, for example, and you can tell the GDS these action alarms or these alarm outputs can work only based on that schedule. This is a wiring diagram of how to connect the electric strike to the GDS. As you can see, the electric strike requires its own source of power. So in case you want to, in case you are using PoE with the GDS, you can do that, but the strike needs to have its own source of power. In case you need more information about the different wiring diagrams and for different scenarios, you can always go to the Grandstream websites and the product page, and then you can look for the document related to the specific scenario. Then it's going to show you the schematic diagram about how to configure the wiring and where to connect them. One thing that I would like to mention about the electric strike is when you want to purchase one of these devices, just make sure whether it's a fail-safe or fail-secure strike. And as you can see it in the slide, the fail-safe, the lock is released if power is off, which means if the power goes down, the lock will automatically open. This is not, for example, useful in case you want to deploy this in a bank, because you don't want the doors for the bank to become released in the middle of the night when the power goes off. And the second mode is the fail secure, which is the opposite. If the alarm is off, the lock will automatically lock because there is no electric circuit, and this is how the mechanism of the two modes works. So you need to make sure which mode you want to purchase. And if you go again to the Grandstream website, you're going to find the wiring diagram that explains how to connect each of these types of the electric strike. So now let's talk about the security features supported on the GDS. So the first one I would like to talk about is the hostage code. Uh, as you know, that every user or every employee or every member of the family, they can have their own PIN number. But in case there is a hostage situation where someone is holding a gun against you to unlock the door, you can still do that, but you're going to use a different PIN number. So when you go to the GDS and you enable the hostage code mode, the GDS is going to ask you to enter a unique password. And that's the password that you're going to use to unlock the GDS or to unlock the door from the GDS in such situation. And when you do that, you configure an alarm action. So every time you unlock the strike using that specific PIN number associated with the hostage scenario, the GDS will send, you can configure them, I'm going to show you later. You can send either an email, or you can send a SIP call, or you can take snapshot. So there are multiple options, and we're going to go through them when we go through the web interface. Just one of the things uh, that does not work with the hostage code is the alarm. For that case, specifically that case, there is no alarm because you don't want to freak those people out. So in case they don't hurt the person, so that's why the audio alarm is silent, specifically for that hostage situation. The second scenario is the pin error alert. You can configure the GDS to with alarm actions, and you can see them actually in the screenshot. There are 6 options that you can use. So in case someone fails to enter the correct PIN number after 5 consecutive times, you can tell the GDS how to react. You can upload snapshot, or you can alarm output, which means if you have a siren connected to the GDS, that siren is going to go off in case someone tries it 5 times. Or you can send an audio alarm, or you can send an email or audio alarm to a SIP phone. Uh, the GDS also is tamper-proof, is vandal resistant. You can also go to the configuration of the GDS. So if someone is trying to tamper with your device, you can configure it with a set of alarm actions, including audio alarm, upload snapshots, alarm output, or send email. The same thing that we saw with the previous feature, the security application. The fourth scenario is motion detection. So motion detection, as I mentioned, GDS has a built-in motion detector. You can configure it, for example, to send you an email, or you can configure it to call a certain extension, or you can configure it with an alarm output. For example, if someone walks by the GDS, you can connect one of those lighting things to the GDS, so every time someone walks in, the light will turn on. This is one of the features that we added in the latest firmware, I believe, which is you can only allow access based on schedule. So if you're an employee and you have the right credentials or the right private PIN to unlock the strike, you can tell the GDS to configure, tell the GDS, for example, to trigger a set of alarm actions in case someone tries this during out of office hours. GDS Manager, as you know, the GDS you can manage it from its web interface. But in case you have multiple GDS devices deployed in your network, you can use the GDS Manager, which is a free software that you can download from the Grandstream website, which allows you to manage multiple devices from one point. And you pretty much have access to most of the features available on the GDS, where you can actually monitor them the same way we do it with the NVR and DVR. You can monitor the cameras. You can actually use the microphone of your computer to talk to GDS. You can take screenshots, snapshots from the GDS Manager. You can actually start recording from the GDS Manager. And I'm going to show you later just a quick review about this application. We're going to go through it quickly so you can have a good idea about what it does. All right, so let's go ahead and log into one of the devices. So right now I'm logged into that one. So when you have the GDS installed and connected to your network, the GDS will automatically request, of course, an IP address from the DHCP server. After it gets an IP address, there are several ways how to get access to the web interface so you can start doing your configuration. And one of these options is, of course, to check the DHCP table and get the IP address based on the MAC address. The second option is to detect the GDS using UPnP, which is enabled by default from a computer running Windows. So let me just see if I can find this one. So basically you go to network and then you go to other devices. And based on the MAC address, for example, this is mine because it ends with 57, the MAC address. I can just click on it, then it's going to take me to the web UI. So that's a nice feature. If you don't want to use that feature, you can always go to GDS and then you can disable the UPnP. If UPnP is disabled on the network, then you can use the third option, which is GS search, that you need to download from the Grandstream website. You go to support, tools, and you look for GS search. It's right there. You don't have to install it, you just download it and you run the application, then it's going to detect all the GDS, all the Grandstream devices in your network, and just by clicking on the device, you can open it. So let's go ahead and log into the GDS. If you purchase the GDS, by the way, the password is usually included in the sticker in the back of the GDS device. Once you are in, you should see a web interface similar to this one, and then you can start doing your configuration. And one of the things that we recommend, make sure you change the password after you log in for the first time. The password, you can change it and the access settings. And the user management. So you're just going to put the current password and then put a different password and then associate it with an email. So people who have access to the device will not have access to the web interface of the GDS. Okay, so the first step in the configuration of the SIP extension is SIP registration. So if you have, for example, an IP-PBX, you can get the information from the IP-PBX and just include it in these settings. Or if you have the GDS registered to a carrier or third-party IP-PBX, just get the SIP credentials and then enter the information here until you see the system going online. Okay, so now I have my account registered. There's also security options here that we call whitelist that you can enable. So basically this setting, what it does, it allows you to configure the extensions or the numbers that are allowed to call extension 1002 that we configured on GDS. For example, if if I only want extension 1005 to be able to call the GDS, I can just add this extension and make sure I enable the whitelist. So this way, only extension 1005 will be able to call the GDS. The next step, you want to add users. And the users, you can add them under card management. So in case you have the RFID cards and you want to scan them, so once you start scanning those cards, this list is going to start getting populated. So you can start to see all the names, all the RFID cards populated in here. The GDS has, you can use it, for example, as a scanning or card issuing mode. So in case you have like 20 cards and you want to scan them into the GDS, very simple. Just go to basic settings and then click on start. What's going to happen, the keypad of the GDS will start blinking to tell you that it's in card issuing mode. Then you just take the cards and you swipe them quickly. Once you're done, you're going to see all these cards populated in here. And then you can access one of those cards and you can add the other information like the name that is going to be associated with that specific card. And then you can assign them a private number that they're going to use to unlock the strike. And then some other information like virtual number. Just to clarify what a virtual number means, because you can see that there's a virtual number and there's a SIP number. Virtual number is a number that you're going to use to log into to unlock the strike connected to the GDS. And you can use it also in case you have an apartment building and you have multiple apartments. You can use the virtual number as the apartment number. For example, if Steve lives at apartment 302, I'm just going to put virtual number 302 and the SIP number 1013. So if someone comes to the GDS and then they punch in 302 and then send, the GDS will automatically call the SIP extension number that is associated with the virtual number, which is 1013. So this is a nice way. It's like, it makes it more flexible for you. Instead of putting the extension numbers, you can just use the apartment numbers or virtual numbers, and these virtual numbers will be associated with SIP extensions. So once you're done with the card management, add in all the users, assign them extensions, PIN numbers, and virtual numbers. Then you can go to basic settings. And here you have some options. These options, they explain themselves, which means if you enter the correct private PIN number, the door or the strike is going to unlock immediately, and it's going to remain open for 5 seconds. And the time between each swipe in the cards is 300 milliseconds, which means you can swipe up to 3 cards in a second. There is also this option, which is nice, snapshots when door opened. You can configure the email on the GDS. So in case someone punches in a number or they press the doorbell button, the GDS will automatically take the snapshot of that person and then send it to you via email. In case you have TFTP configured, you can also include a TFTP. So we talked about the virtual number and the SIP number. So in case you want to use the GDS as a SIP endpoint, which means people, they go to the GDS and from there they can dial extensions, they can dial numbers, you need to choose the call mode SIP extensions. If you want people to use the virtual mode, as the example that I gave you with the building with many apartments, users, they can only dial the virtual numbers, which means if they go to the dial keypad and then they enter an extension number, it's not going to work if it doesn't match a virtual number. Then you have the option, the doorbell button. So once you press the doorbell button, it's going to call the number that is associated, which is 1013. In case you have a ring group with so many extensions, you can include, for example, the ring group extension. And then you can also configure the doorbell button based on a schedule. So let's say you are in your house and um, you just want to enable the doorbell button between, let's say, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. You can configure that one there. So the doorbell button will only work during that specific time. And when we were talking about the access mode supported on the GDS, I mentioned that you can use either the RFID card or the PIN number. So when you choose the private PIN, these are the two modes that's going to work, either PIN number or RFID card. In case you want to use the combination of both, which means requires the card and the PIN number, that's the type that you need to select, which is card and private PIN. In case it's a family house and all the members, they share the same PIN number, you can choose a unified PIN and then you can select your PIN number. And that should do it. And in case you are, by the way, in case you are using the GDS and you have a third-party card reader, but you still want to use it with the GDS, you can do that. And the way to connect it to the GDS is through the WIGN connection through the GDS. Just make sure you set that one to yes, and you configure, you choose the mode that you would like to apply from the card reader. All right, next before we go to alarm settings, we can go to the email settings so you can make sure that the email is configured properly. So in case I would like to use this GDS to send me email and I have a Gmail account, I can simply enter the SMTP server of Gmail, which is smtp.gmail.com. Because I'm using SSL, so it's going to be port 465. Then I can enter my email address in there, and then I can enter the password associated with my email address. And then I can include the destination email. So in case you are two people, you can include two email addresses in these options. So after the email is configured, I can test it to make sure that I receive the emails. And then I can go back to alarm settings so I can set up my alarm action. The first option is motion detection. I don't have the plugin downloaded. I don't want to do that right now because I don't want to reboot the browser. But once you do it, you can select multiple regions for motion detection from here. And you can set the alarm schedule together with the alarm profile. For example, if you have, let's start with schedule first. If you have, for example, the alarm configured only at night, you can select one of the schedules and then you click on edit schedule, then it's going to take you where you configure your own schedule for motion detection. And then you choose the profile that you want to choose for that specific event. So let's go to one of the profiles. So you can choose one of these and you can name it. For example, this one is going to be for motion detection. So I'm going to give it motion detection, and all I need is upload snapshot and send an email. And I don't want the GDS to send me a call. Let's say this is used in front of your house and you don't want it to be disturbed in the middle of the night when someone is just walking by your house. You can just choose these two modes, take a snapshot and send me an email telling me that there was a motion detected at that specific time. So once you save that one, you can also configure the schedule. I can configure, for example, that one for motion detection, and I can choose it, for example, Monday from 5 to, I would say, like 11, and then I can duplicate the same thing for the weekdays, and then I can save. And then you can see details, just click on it, then it's going to show you which hours you have selected. So now that I have the schedule and the alarm action configured, I can just come here, select motion detection, schedule, and motion detection profile. So every time there is an activity, it's going to send me an email based on the schedule. Next, we have the input digit. I mentioned earlier that there are two modes. You can use, for example, open door in case you have a door switch that you want to connect to input one. You can choose that mode. In case you have another device, let's say an infrared detector connected to input digit number two, then I can, for example, set an alarm for it. And I can choose, for example, schedule one, and then I want to choose profile three. And then I can go back to profile three and make the changes and choose the ones that I want to apply to this scenario. Uh, During the presentation, I talked about the security applications, and we talked about the different scenarios, and one of them was the hostage scenario. So in case you want to enable that option, make sure you set that one to yes, and then I can include a different PIN number. And then I can choose a different profile. And then in the profile three, for example, I can choose the actions that I want the GDS to take if someone unlocks the door with that hostage PIN number. You can also enable the tamper alarm. So in case someone is messing up with your device from outside and they trying to rip it off the wall or something, you can configure also another profile so that the GDS can send you a notification immediately. You can also configure the alarm for pin input error in case someone is failing to enter the correct combination like more than 4 times. You can also choose what profile you want to apply to that one. The same thing applies to non-scheduled access alarm. If your office time is from 8 to 5 and someone tries to access the premises at 11 p.m., you can tell the GDS to take a screenshot and generate certain set of action alarms. So I believe we've covered most of the things that are related to today's presentation. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to submit them. And Angela will help ask your questions, then we'll provide you with the answers.
Great, thanks. I'm seeing questions kind of flowing in, so I'll go ahead and start with this one. Is it possible to connect third-party card readers with the GDS?
Yes, you can definitely do that. You just go to basic settings, and then you need to use the Wigan connection. It's a connection that comes with the GDS, and that's the one that you need to use. And just make sure you set that one to yes. If you need more information about the details involved and how to configure which wire goes where, you can always go to the Grandstream website, and there is a document that explains how to connect those Wigan inputs.
Great, thank you. Another question is, can Strike get powered with PoE from GDS?
The GDS can work with the PoE, no problem. But the electric strike needs to have its own source of power because GDS does not provide power to the strike. It just closes and opens the circuit. It's like a relay for the electric strike. So you need to use a PSU or power supply with the door strike.
Perfect, thank you. Will Open Door feature work with third-party PBX?
That one, this feature works only with the Grandstream devices. And let me just show you here quickly. So this option right here that is circled in red, this one is only available when you have the GDS used with the either direct connection with Grandstream phone or when you have Grandstream IP PBX and not a third-party IP PBX.
Okay, great. I think there's one more question that's coming through. Let me wait for them to finish typing if it's coming through. Anybody else that has any other questions that you would like to ask? Now is your chance. And like I said before, this presentation will be sent to everybody. So if questions do arise after, you may go ahead and contact Streakwave or Abdel at Grandstream, and we'll get those questions answered for you. Okay, doesn't look like that was another question. Well, that's all the questions that I have here, Abdel. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before concluding the presentation?
I think we're good. I just want to thank everyone again for being here with us today. And just keep an eye for the upcoming webinars.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for your time, Abdel.
Thank you.
Please keep a lookout for the webinar sent to you by email. Bye.
Sure. Thanks. Bye.